Hello, and welcome to episode 69 of Expertise is Overrated, the podcast that takes the time to answer the questions you didn't know you didn't want the answers to. I'm Sean.
And I'm Vib, and neither of us has any clue what we're talking about.
Much like the writers of Season 1 of Rings of Power. Am I right?
Doesn't really get better the second time, but...
we weren't going to say anything.
I mean, I was always going to say something, and you damn well know it.
You're literally the worst.
I like to give the viewers, the listeners, the readers...
hopefully viewers.
The everybody's, the, exclusive look behind the scenes, behind the curtain that is the...
It's not exclusive if you give it to everyone.
I might edit this out, you don't know.
As my mother once told me. Sorry.
Well, I think that's just our cue to move straight on. Rings of Power. Rings of Power Season 2.
Where is Season 2 of Rings of Power?
Where is Season 2 of Rings of Power? It's a very good question. I just landed on the Wikipedia site, and there's one episode listed on it, but no information beyond that.
Or is it just episode 1 with no...
Yeah, episodes, number overall... number overall 9. Number in Season 1. Title to be announced. Directed by Charlotte Brandstrom. Written by To Be Decided.
There will be an episode at some point.
So it sounds like it's still a ways off. I guess...
Next summer? Or this coming summer, maybe?
Maybe.
Autumn? That'd be 2 years since...
Well, SAG-AFTRA strikes that have now been resolved, I do believe.
I think they've been resolved, but that's, I suppose, fair.
It's entirely fair. We had a debate about strikes the other day, didn't we?
We did. We did. And sorry, when I say fair, I think it is fair that it be delayed because of the writers' strikes. I'm entirely in favour of everyone and anyone striking as often as they can.
Which is, I'd like to
just
paint
upsets
you as
me. I'm not
who can't, who isn't that, but you very much are.
It just saddens me. I'm not a member of a trade union, but none of them will have me.
Well, I'm sad that I am a member of a union, and whenever we strike, it seems to be entirely ineffectual.
Yeah, your union's quite rubbish, isn't it?
Well, it is and it isn't. We only have power in terms of those of us who interface with students, because once you start affecting the student body, everybody starts to pay attention.
Yeah, I suppose. Just generally being an academic who doesn't teach. Maybe you shouldn't have any strike power, because, your value to society is so abstract at that point.
Wow. Okay, we're going into a very different episode today, are we?
The
value of academia in society.
I think there's absolutely a Patreon episode here.
Yes, which should be out. We should be live on Patreon. That's the wrong thing to say. We're definitely not live on Patreon right now. We should have a Patreon.
It should now be possible for you, the listeners, to give us money.
Yes. Exciting.
Which for us is a very exciting prospect.
I hope you're also just holding 2 thumbs up to the camera like an absolute lunatic.
I am now.
Cheers.
This is awkward because we're recording video, but we can't see each other.
I know. We should. I'd say we should do video calls on Discord to maybe make it a bit more interactive. We should actually genuinely consider that.
We should, but I don't know if my connection and my CPU can handle recording video and recording audio and streaming audio and streaming video. That feels like a lot to ask of a 8-year-old computer.
I said the point is that our PCs are both ancient.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that I don't think anyone can ever hear what I hear when I record these episodes, which is my laptop absolutely chugging. It's free heating in a way.
Yeah. What am I running? I've got a 1070.
1070, yeah. Me too. But a laptop 1070, which is inferior to yours in many ways, I'm sure.
It's really important that you remember that fact. But anyway, we should try it. We should try it because that'd be good.
It gives you something more to look at, because I tend to just look at my traces. Anyway, this is all unimportant stuff. Strikes, SAG after it. No, very fair that they struck. Striked?
They were on strike.
Fixed
it. No, yeah, so they were on strike, and that has by necessity delayed an awful lot in Hollywood. But
yeah,
I mean, Wheel of Time managed to get out its second season,
but also much later than I think anybody anticipated it. Right?
Yeah,
there was a 2-year gap, I think.
But Wheel of Time, was it that much?
Was it a 2-year gap? Because Wheel of Time season 2 came out nearish the end of last year, right? As in
Q4 it was about 18 months, I think. And yeah, towards the end of 2023, which I think was about 18 months after season 1. Because it was a little bit before Rings of Power.
And that's Rosamund Pike, who I think has since done quite a few projects.
She's in like Saltburn and stuff, isn't she?
I really want to watch. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't, although I have seen Oppenheimer. No.
Okay, wow, you're
yeah, no, I'm
late to the party.
Shut up. Shut up. I liked it. I liked Oppenheimer though. That was very, very good.
The film I can recommend is Jurassic Park. It's very good.
I was waiting for you to say whatever the new one was, Dominion or whatever, and then I was going to shout at you. But no, you were just recommending films from the 90s because that's funny.
I mean, I recommend good films from the 90s because it's funny.
Yeah, all right, fair
funny?
Enough.
Oppenheimer is a great film.
Yes, yeah. My wife and I were going to do Barbieheimer? Where you watch
Barbenheimer, I think.
Barbenheimer, where you watch both the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer. But it took us 2 nights to watch Oppenheimer, and neither of us could be bothered to watch the Barbie movie as well.
It's a long film, is Oppenheimer, yeah.
Yeah, but good.
But you're keen to hear what you think about Barbie, actually. It's a confusing film in some respects. Or controversial film, maybe.
Maybe we should do an episode on the Barbie movie and just absolutely throw everyone.
A Barbie watch-along.
Good. Barbie watch-along.
I think we're exactly the wrong kind of people to be talking about the virtues of the Barbie film, but yes, let's give it a go.
That might make it perfect. Let's pull this back again. Strikes.
Rings of Power. But speaking of quality,
Wheel of Time, Rosamund Pike.
Yeah, Rosamund Pike, yeah.
So I'm back on track.
Speaking of quality, I guess, so Rings of Power Season 1, we did a review episode when Rings of Power hit. And it was one of those weird ones, right? Because I think we both quite liked it as it was going on. And I think, certainly for me, it sort of then passed into, not obscurity, what's the sort of phrase I'm looking for here?
Iniquity?
Yeah. Sort of, I'd watched it, forgot about it, and then I can't really bring myself to go back to it. Not bring myself, but
I'm wondering this. Has it got worse over time, having not watched it more? Like, I think it might have done for me. When we spoke about it in our review, I think we both gave it 6 or 7 out of 10. 7, I think we both gave it. But I don't think I'd give it 7 out of 10 now, having not gone back to rewatch it. I think it's retrospectively got worse the more I think about it.
Oh, I don't
know. I'm not really sure why.
I don't think I would say that. I feel like not going back to watch a 7 in that space of time is perfectly reasonable. Like,
that's true.
There's plenty of things out there to watch that I think it has to be probably in the 9s for me to have rewatched it this soon.
That's true. I mean, I'm still doing my Supernatural rewatch. I have plenty. I still haven't seen all of Loki. Oh, it's completely died. I just can't. I've got to. I don't even know where I've got to. I forgot. But like, I've done Ragnarok. I think I've done Ragnarok.
I think you did Ragnarok. Yeah, I think you were mid Endgame or something, or mid Infinity War, maybe.
I think I'm in mid Infinity War, and I'm just like, I know that I've only got 2 or 3 good films left, and then there's a whole bunch of and then there's the odd really, really good film. But if I want to go and watch Shang-Chi, I'll just go and watch Shang-Chi. Like, please don't Please don't make me watch Ant-Man and the Wasp. Or Eternals, or any of like those in between. Black Widow.
You know,
no, thank you.
I do kind of want to go watch Eternals again.
Okay, yeah, all right. There is a little bit of me that wants to go watch Eternals.
Sort of a Schadenfreude thing, you know? But
it can't be as bad as we remember it being.
That's the thing, right? That's the thing. And this, again, Rings of Power is one of these where it wasn't so bad that I think it'd be comical to go back and watch it now.
I think that's almost its problem. It was just fine.
Average.
It was just fine.
The sweeping visuals are great, but equally I could just watch the Lord of the Rings movies and I'd actually get a much, much, much better experience. I cannot stress how much better an experience that would be.
I mean, there's a case to be made that 1.5 of the Hobbit's films is better
than Rings of Power Season 1.
Yeah.
Why? How could I make the case that all 3 of those films are better than Rings of Power Season 1?
Not 100% of all 3 films. That's my... Because you've got
such a cop-out, but you're right.
I know.
You're absolutely right as well.
66% of those films, or not 66%, something like that. 60% of those films are really good, but it's spread across 3 films.
And the issue is the 33% that isn't good is really not good.
Is the elf dwarf romance plot, or I don't even.
It's
know
essentially the entire fight on the ice plateau. Or Stephen Fry,
fight
actually.
Which is heresy to say, but
also
Stephen
so true.
Fry, Alfred, like. Orlando Bloom's face not moving enough. Anyway,
why does his face not move in all of those films? It's really weird. No, he was absolutely fine in Lord of the Rings. He was great in Lord of the Rings, and then they decided that like he was way too emotive. I guess I don't know.
I think because they're trying to make him look exactly like Legolas in Lord of the Rings, despite the fact that Orlando Bloom has aged a little bit, so they've like stuck cardboard to his forehead or something.
I mean, he has aged, but I mean, I think he's aged
badly.
pretty well. I think Orlando Bloom's up there.
He's aged okay. Yeah.
He's done okay.
He looks all right.
Speaking of then, let's see. Can we get Orlando Bloom into season 2 of Rings of Power?
We shouldn't,
but we could.
But we could.
Do we know if Legolas was around in the Second Age?
No, because Thranduil
was.
I said that really aggressively.
Yeah. And then you stopped because you realised that Thranduil probably was around in the Second Age.
Yeah. I get Legolas's branch confused. Where does Orifer come in? Is that Thranduil's father?
Oh, we always have this debate, and I always forget.
We always do.
No, it's not.
Is Orifer? It doesn't matter. I don't think Legolas should be in Rings of Power. For one very important reason. It's not Jackson's canon. It's a different
Orifer was the father
canon.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Well, now then.
It has to be. It has to be. Or not has to be. It should be. Because then bits of it not making sense in the context of Jackson's films doesn't matter. Jackson's films are an interpretation of Tolkien's work.
Mm-hmm.
Rings of Power is also an interpretation of Tolkien's work. They're 2 different interpretations, but they can both exist side by side and not affect each other. Except in a few ways they're too close.
Yeah, I think that's an argument you could have made before season 1 aired.
I think it was an argument I was making quite loudly before season 1 aired.
I think it was, yeah. But then they took some directions where you think, he's sort of trying to lean into it a little bit.
Well, it's fine for there to be overlap because they're drawing from the same source material, so they will touch on the same elements.
But they're not, right, ultimately. I think the whole point, certainly the whole point that I was trying to make when it came to season 1 is that the source material they have is quite lacking, right? So
That's
there was plenty of freedom for them to take plenty of directions, or to use characters that we didn't necessarily know by name, but they didn't do any of that. And now they supposedly have the rights to at least part of the Silmarillion.
Is this true? I haven't been able to track this down, but I've read that as well.
So this is part of the rumor mill, I suppose. I don't know if this has been confirmed.
They went out and went, we need more. So they've got elements of the Silmarillion. I heard, so jumping straight onto rumours that we've heard, I heard they got the music of the Ainur. They have the rights to recreate the music of the Ainur section. Which
is jokes, because how on earth are you going to fit that into this TV show?
Sauron's backstory, which I think is what a lot of season 2 is going to focus on.
That is such a stretch, though, isn't it? You're going to stretch the music of the Ainur to Sauron without talking about literally all of the First Age.
Well, he would have been there.
Oh, I don't know if that's true.
He would have been there because all the Maiar were there.
I don't know if that's true.
I'm going to put my foot down and declare, well, all the Ainur were there. It's the music of the Ainur, of which Sauron is one. And Ainur aren't jumping in and out of existence. We don't get new Ainur.
Yeah, but it's not all of the Maiar, I think, is my contention. And I don't know if Sauron would have been there.
I don't see any reason why it wouldn't have been all of the Ainur. It's really annoying because my copy of the Silmarillion is downstairs.
Mine's just a little bit too far away.
So I think the theory is they're going to try and explain why Sauron is the new Dark Lord. So what is it that drives him? So he will be... I don't want them to humanize him, because that's already sort of happened with Halbrand. I don't need Myron, so Sauron as Maiar, to be humanized. But they might try and explain why he turned from Aule to Melkor, I guess.
But do we care? Frankly, do we care? Because they've already set up Sauron to be the great enemy, right, of the show, as in that's literally minute 1 of episode 1.
Yes.
And as you say, we've already had a sort of storyline where, is he Sauron? Is he not Sauron? And they're probably going to go down on that by introducing Anatar.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, they are good, yeah. We have an actor for Anatar, don't we?
We supposedly haven't... Well, I think that is actually confirmed, right? That we have an actor for Anatar, which is exciting. I think that is a cool storyline to explore.
And I really like the idea of doing Anatar as a completely different face of Sauron, rather than just putting Halbrand in some nice clothes and giving him a shave, because Sauron's whole thing is being a deceiver, as a shapeshifter. So actually have him shift his shape to a completely new persona. I really like that.
It makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you have to do that, because the whole point is that he's supposed to essentially be able to fool people again.
Yeah, that is also the problem. He's going to go and hang out with Celebrimbor, and Celebrimbor has met Halbrand.
Well, I think Galadriel Sauron Romance Season 2. Hello. That's what we're all here for. Stick her on a horse, and who knows what's going to happen. That sounded wrong, didn't it?
Where is Celeborn? I want Celeborn.
I'd rate it if they just never write him into this show at all. But never explain it.
He's mentioned, though. He's mentioned.
Yeah. But just don't go there.
Character.
Yeah.
That'd be really funny.
And at the end, he's just stood right next to Galadriel all along.
He just was... Celeborn is also there.
Yeah. Or he'll be the sort of the ex machina that they use to win some big battle.
Yeah, Celeborn turns up with a host of Noldor out of absolutely nowhere at the Battle of the Last Alliance.
It's like, where did you get these 20,000 high elves from? It's like, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
It's cool. Or worse, he's come from Valinor.
Yes, that would be worse.
He's like leading the host of Wrath or something, which would make even less sense because they have no business being here at this time. But
that would be so funny. The doom has been lifted for this one last act. Oh, it almost writes itself, except it's so bad.
If you're looking for 2 new writers, Rings of Power,
do you need absolute hack writing?
Non-unionized. That's
true,
a terrible thing to say, isn't it? It's true.
Scab. If I cross a picket line, my ancestors will disown me. Oh, well, cross that bridge when we come to it. I'll take the money.
I think my grandfather, my dad's side, I think was like a union leader. So yeah, I think I would also be disowned. Anyway,
we're going to get some Anatar. That's going to be very good. I also want some Halbrand because I thought Halbrand was a very good Sauron.
Halbrand was so charismatic,
I know,
while
right?
still managing to be like obviously a wrong'un.
Yeah, but there was always, we spoke about this in our review, there was always a little bit of is he just a, like, regular wrong'un, though, rather than
Yeah, you were a big fan of
Sauron.
this, right? You weren't convinced that he was necessarily Sauron, whereas I
I
thought
was
he
like
was.
90% convinced he was Sauron.
I still can't believe that this was not more common as a theory amongst people that he was in fact Sauron. That blew my mind.
Yeah, no, I remember talking about this, and you and I were very confused because when we did a little bit of research, it turned out that lots and lots of people didn't think that Halbrand was going to be Sauron. Like, lots of people who weren't Tolkien fans were just like, that guy, no, not a chance.
Yeah, it was all
It's
about
too
the
obvious.
wizards, right?
It was all about the stranger. Meanwhile, you and I were like, no, he's like 99% that's Sauron. Well, you were more convinced than I was.
It was just too yeah, there was something too slimy about it, right?
Yeah, I think, well, that's exactly right. But I think for a lot of people, he was too obvious because he had that little bit of a wrong'un about him. He looked like a bait and switch. People were looking for who seems fairer and smells fouler.
Yeah, but I think that's exactly it. They really leaned into that little line from the films because they made Halbrand look like the way he did, and sort of kingly, right? They gave him that whole backstory, but he just felt foul throughout. And I think it was really well acted.
It was, and it was so up and down as well. Because there were definitely times when he was sort of oozing charisma, but there was always just that little side. And I think oozing charisma is a phrase that I use quite frequently, but it actually fits here. He was almost, like you said, slimy in his charisma-ness.
Yeah. But also, it's like super impressive if you think about what Sauron is and what he's capable of, that he kept up that facade.
Yes. Yeah,
and then disappeared into a stream.
Did disappear into a stream. I'm going to say turned into like a bat or something and flew away.
That's a bit Dracula, but sure.
He does that when he fights Luthien.
I mean, yeah, but, still a bit
That's
Dracula.
also the first stage.
It's also the
It's
first
also
stage.
the first stage, and all the rules are different.
And I think when you're facing Luthien, that's, acceptable.
You just find a way. And the best dog ever.
Yeah. So, yeah, looking forward to some Anatar and Halbrand / Sauron storylines.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because I feel myself not being particularly excited for Numenor. I don't know why. That all sort of fell flat, with Elendil being the exception.
I quite liked Numenor, but it seemed too... What's the right word?
It felt too Game of Thronesy.
It did and it didn't. It felt like budget Game of Thrones. Like Numenor felt small. That's the right word. Numenor felt small. This didn't feel like the greatest, arguably the greatest civilization ever. which is sort of what Numenor is in Tolkien's writings. Like, Numenor, when fully assembled, is the mightiest military force ever assembled.
Again, I'm not sure I would believe that.
It's vaguely written about in the Silmarillion.
Vaguely, yes.
And yes, there's probably an argument to be made that if you're a massive elf lover, as you are, the host of the Noldor and their pomp are mightier. But, like, the overall point stands.
I was partly thinking if you empty Angband, I think Numenor would wither pretty quickly. But yeah, no, it's true. They're supposed to be that, right? And I think they did such a good job of introducing Numenor like that, with all the sweeping, beautiful vistas and making it look all grand. But then everything that happened there felt so small.
It felt like the BBC Rome series. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's actually a really good example.
Like, in a lot of ways it didn't, but there was something about the scale of it. If you compare it to, I don't know what's a good counter-example, but like Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones always felt big because it was shot in such a way that even when there weren't that many people in shot, the scenes that they were in felt big and grand. And Numenor, for me, never really felt like that.
But it's also because I think the stakes were just a little bit weird, right, at first, when Numenor gets introduced. Like, Galadriel shows up with this sort of idea of that there's an enemy, but there's, like, zero proof of there being an enemy. It's just like, really, this is the mightiest kingdom, or I guess queendom at that point, really, in Middle-earth, and this is sort of what's galvanized them into action. I don't know. I didn't really buy it.
No, and I like Pharazôn, soon to be our Pharazôn. I think he's great as an actor and as a casting, and he's very well written and all of that. But he seemed, because Numenor feels small, he felt small.
It feels insignificant, right?
He feels insignificant. He doesn't feel like a man who will lead his entire people to war with the gods.
I wonder if it's because they over-egged the Noldor slightly. Do you think?
Maybe.
Because they made such a big deal of Galadriel, like, and giving her this title of commander of the Northern Armies or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sort of
all
Maximus Decimus
six elves in the northern.
Yeah, exactly. But exactly, that's the point, right? I think that's true, but there's like probably 8 of them.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you say, Numenor at this point is an ascendant power. But it's like, oh, this one elf shows up. We kind of hate the elves, but actually she's going to convince us to go to war with somebody we don't even know about. It just all didn't quite...
And we'll send 3 boats and 300 people.
Well, I think that's also a great example of scale, right? Those boats looked absolutely tiny and somehow contained 100 riders or something, right?
Yeah, 100 horses. But so by comparison, I have a calendar hanging on the wall in here, which I just glanced at, which is like art that people have done of the fall of Numenor as written by Tolkien. And the architecture of Numenor is, in these pictures, like stupidly grand. Like, there are towers miles high. Like, the Temple of Sauron, or the Temple of Morgoth is a picture, and it's like, it looks like, I don't even know what it looks like. It looks like the Golden Throne from 40k in scale. And you just didn't get the sense from the Numenor that we saw on screen that those two civilizations are the same. So I want that to feel better, I think. And I would hope if we spend more time in Numenor that it will do.
I think there's a few issues with that, potentially, right? One, I think they wanted to sort of make a big deal of Valinor, right? And I guess they show it for a split second, and I think...
They do, and it's incredibly impressive for the split second that we see it.
Yeah, and I think that creates a bit of an issue. They're like, well, we can't make it grander than that, right? Because that doesn't make any sense. The second issue is there's just no need to have Numenor in the TV show at this point, if you know what I mean. As in, there's no need to have Numenor in all its grandeur and splendor, because it's so overblown powerful when all we've seen is like 4 orcs.
we shouldn't have seen the capital of Numenor. I can't remember what it is at this time. It's not Anduni anymore. But we shouldn't have seen that. We should have seen, like, their least city on their eastern coast or something. Like, I don't quite know how you do it. Maybe we didn't need Numenor at all.
Yeah, part of me thinks we didn't need Numenor at all.
Except I do want Elendil, because he was one of the best things, and we need Isildur. Do we?
But having Elendil is something that breaks my brain, because like it's way too early, isn't it?
They're just clearly condensing the timeline. But I wonder if your first season you could have done such that you didn't have Numenor at all. Or you only see Numenor either at a distance or like travelers from Numenor.
I love this. This episode is ostensibly what we want to see in season 2, but it's more like what we wanted to see in season 1. I think you can get away with not having Numenor, right? If you set it up in such a way, which they kind of did, right, with the Southlands men and women, but you know, Tolkien capital men,
the men of the Southlands, yeah.
And I think if you sort of build that struggle up in the way they sort of did, and then paint it in such a way that, you know, it's clear that the Noldor just don't have the capacity nor really the will to deal with this.
Yeah, I always got the sense that it was will rather than capacity. Gil-galad can't be bothered.
Well, yeah, because his Malon trees are dying and he needs Mithril, of course.
Yeah.
His logic. But
it's true.
But yeah, I think if you paint it in such a way, and then you set it up so that Galadriel or the other elf guy whose name...
Arondir.
Yes, thank you. That essentially, that's how the last alliance starts, right? Kind of a random elf and a random woman from the Southlands are like, whoa, we need to do something about this. You create a little bit of a Beren and Luthien story, and you skip the whole Galadriel and Sauron thing.
Or not a Beren and Luthien story, just a needs-must story.
Yeah.
So you don't do romance. I didn't like the Arondir romance.
I think you just don't like romance in Lord of the Rings, do you?
I don't like romance in general. I'm ultimately dead and shriveled inside. But we've done Aragorn and Arwen. We've done now Keely and Tauriel. Like
no.
Everyone is recreating a Beren and Luthien story, and the whole point of Aragorn and Arwen is that this doesn't happen very often.
Okay, let me rephrase a bit, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a romantic element to it, but it just has to be a cooperation between men and elves.
Yes.
And those were the obvious 2 characters, I think.
Yeah. No, I know.
Because I think they worked quite well together.
They did.
Chemistry.
They did have good on-screen chemistry, so I'm just asking for them to take out one of the things that was actually good on screen because I didn't like it. Which I understand. Like, I'm nothing if not unreasonable.
Yeah, that is unfortunately very true. But yeah, and I think in that setting you don't necessarily need Numenor, but equally I think you take Numenor out of season 1 and you're really left with very little.
That's the problem. There's not a lot of content left if you take Numenor out of season 1. You could have done more with Adar, I suppose. But
could you?
Not really. Unless you make Adar a bigger threat. And actually until
no, but it doesn't really work because you know that Sauron's a threat and he kind of says he's not Sauron very early on.
But you redo it so the threat is how do you make this work? So the threat is conveyed mostly through Arondir, right? So Arondir keeps hearing of the threat of Adar, and separately, and he's fighting, he's struggling against it, whatever. He's trying to help the people of the Southlands, And separately, you have Galadriel in the north, or wherever it is, hunting for Sauron. And we, the audience, are being driven towards, you're looking in the wrong place, you're looking in the wrong place. Clearly, Adar is Sauron. He's in the Southlands. Get to the Southlands. What are you doing, Galadriel? And then eventually, somehow, a message gets from Arondir in the Southlands to Gil-galad, or to Elrond. Like, there is trouble in the Southlands. You need to come. I need help. And Galadriel is there. And she's like, this is Sauron. And Gil-galad's like, no, you've been looking for Sauron. He's clearly gone. This is nothing. Stop it. And then you can give Galadriel her moment of defiance, where she's like, well, I'm fucking going, and my dad's more important than you'll ever be, so you don't get to stop me. And then she goes and joins Arondir fighting in the Southlands, and she starts to believe that Adar is Sauron, because all of the signs are there, everything makes sense. And then you do the Adar reveal, well, I'm not Sauron, I hate Sauron. And you go that way? Maybe.
I don't hate it.
But then
I love that you snuck in the fact that her dad is more important than Gil-galad will ever be. I feel like that's slightly contentious, perhaps.
Gil-galad doesn't have a house named after him. But you know what I mean. That bit was just me being funny, and it's a way for Galadriel to be obstreperous.
No, but, and equally, I mean, her dad is definitely much more badass than...
Yeah, isn't her dad High King of all of the Noldor in Valinor?
Yeah, but, he's just too reasonable. Because he was just like, nah, fuck that shit.
It's true.
Too wise to go and make this mistake. No, I think that could work. So how do we engineer that in Season 2? How do we kind of retcon what happened in Season 1 to create more suspense?
Well, we can't really have any secrets anymore. There's going to be no who is Strange Person X, because we know who Strange Person X is.
Well, you could kill fuck me, I keep forgetting his name. Halbrand. You could kill Halbrand on air. You could even have Galadriel do it. Or the Númenóreans.
I'm not sure that gets you anything, though.
No, but it sort of gets you a reset of that whole storyline of like, oh, Sauron's gone. And Galadriel's like, no, he's not. I swear he's not. And then he's just chilling in Númenor.
I don't want Who is Sauron again. We've done that. It wasn't interesting. Well, it was vaguely interesting the first time. I don't want it again.
It's the only little bit of intrigue that existed.
Who is the stranger?
But talk about stuff I didn't give a shit about. I did not give a shit about who the stranger was.
And that is something that needs fixing in Season 2, I think. Like, to pull back to what we're trying to do. Not, like, if you're going to do the stranger storyline, you need to give it stakes I care about.
Yeah, but they've done that, but in precisely the wrong way. They've made the stakes too high because they've turned him into Gandalf. And they're only going to fuck up his character.
But that's turning him into Gandalf is an absolute zero stakes move, because I know Gandalf's fate. He gets to sail west in like 6,000 years' time.
Yeah.
It's probably too many years. But like that's my point. By making the stranger Gandalf, you've pulled all of the stakes out of that storyline. Like, I don't know how can I possibly care about that storyline? Because all of the important stuff that Gandalf is going to do, I've seen it on screen. He's done it. But it's in the Third Age. He finds the ring bearer. He starts the quest. He defeats the Balrog. He crowns the king.
Yes,
but he does all of that
he is the
DM
DM of Lord of the Rings. Yes, we know.
He is the DMPC. So,
just like here's my totally non-playable character who's way more powerful and important than anyone else.
Follow him as he has adventures.
Yeah. See, what I'd love for Gandalf, it's unfortunate that he's Gandalf, because I was a big fan of him being a blue wizard. But I hope that he goes east, as he says, and interacts with the blue wizards.
Yes.
But what's actually going to happen is that they're going to obviously write in Saruman.
Yes.
And we're going to get the whole White Council thing, because then we'll have Saruman, Galadriel, and Gandalf, and Elrond.
And Gil-galad.
Yeah, but
who I think is a founding member.
Gil-galad. Do we care about Gil-galad that much?
Speaking of things that I want in season 2, give me more Gil-galad actually being awesome. Or give me some Gil-galad actually being awesome. I'd like to see that at some
even
point.
remotely likable. Or like seemingly care about anything.
Show me the last great High King of the Noldor in all of his grandeur. Show me the man that binds together the last alliance with Elendil. Or the elf. Show me the elf that wrestles with Sauron.
Yeah.
Show me that. I mean, to be fair, the Gil-galad that they cast absolutely could wrestle with Sauron.
Absolutely. But I think this is something they didn't quite get right, because they tried to turn it into a slightly sort of political spiel. It's like, how droll that the High King of the Noldor is a bit of a douche. It's like, yeah, but I'm not saying that the High King of the Noldor can't be a douche, but
he should be painfully arrogant.
Yeah, he's the High King of the fucking Noldor. Like, he's going to be ridiculously overblown in whatever direction he goes, right?
But I thought they got Finrod right. Like, that was a really good casting, and he was someone who could have been High King of the Noldor in the way that he acted. He was just phenomenally self-assured in everything. Every time we saw him, like he carried himself with a natural arrogance. Gil-galad's arrogance felt really put on.
Yeah,
like he was acting arrogant because he thought that's how he should act as High King of the Noldor, rather than just because I'm literally the dog's bollocks.
Yeah, I think they got him wrong, and I'd love to see a bit of a redemption for him in season 2.
Yes, I really want a redemption for him in season 2.
But what's actually going to happen is that, because he's obviously wrong about the whole Sauron thing, he's going to get really deferential to Galadriel, which I did advocate for last time, because it's like, how dare you speak to Galadriel like that? You know, she's way more badass than you are. But equally, he's the High King. So,
yeah.
You know. So I don't know how they're going to do that, but I just have no faith that they'll do it. That they'll do it well. Sadly,
unless you do a Gil-galad shows Galadriel behind the curtain, and he goes, and she goes to him, and she's like, "Oh, you know, I was right about Sauron. You were wrong." And he goes, "No, I knew, and I knew that you would seek him out no matter what I did, and it was fundamental." I know, I get it. It's a Varys play. It's a Xanathos gambit. All of that, but that is a way for him to be like, "I needed you to do this, but I also needed everyone who's not you and doesn't have your brother and your father's lineage to not freak the fuck out that we're still at war, because we are still at war. But I have to tell everyone that we're at peace." I don't know. It's weak, but you could sort of do it that way.
I hate that is actually an elegant solution for the shit that they're in.
What
they're actually going to do is like, I was Sauron all along, but you know.
I have Gil-galad locked in a tower. And then Henry Cavill rips his way out of a tower because they cast him as Gil-galad.
Well, yeah, if that Gil-galad is Sauron, then you do need a Henry Cavill to wrestle him. So. The stakes get ever higher, or the actors get ever bigger, rather.
The pecs continue to grow.
Yeah, no, so that's not a bad solution.
The problem is I sort of disagree. It is a bad solution, but it's at least a solution to the problem that they've written themselves in.
Yeah, it's not elegant if you were starting from scratch, but I think if you're going to save face for him, this is sort of where you go with it. What I think they're missing a trick on as well, to the point, is, you know, the fact that he is of Feanor's line, right? And I think that
he must be a Feanor.
Is he a Feanor? No, of course he's not. Celebrimbor is. He's the only one of Feanor's line left.
Celebrimbor is the last Feanorian.
Maedhros, I suppose. Maedhros?
Is he of the line? Yeah.
Yeah, one of his sons.
So is he of Fingolf? He must be of Fingolfin's line.
Who?
Gil-galad.
Didn't we look this up? He's like... No, Fingon.
No, because that's the Golden House, which is what Galadriel is a member of.
No, Fingon is Fingolfin's son. Oh god, Gil-galad. Expertise is overrated, folks. We are here with all the answers.
Excuse us, we're just... I'm just going to go to the Tolkien Project. It's the best way to go.
Gil-galad. Son of Orodreth. That's who you always confuse with Orofer. Grandson of Angrod. House of Finarfin. Okay, so...
The House of Finarfin.
So actually, this was the issue, right? That he's
he's like
Galadriel's younger nephew or cousin or something. Which is kind of weird.
Oh, it's confusing, isn't it? Because Galadriel is Finarfin's daughter, and Gil-galad is Finarfin's great-grandson.
Oh, Maglor disappeared. Yeah, so Maglor's still out there, probably.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, right? So, because they're making a big deal of Elrond living in Gil-galad's court.
Yeah.
And Gil-galad essentially I don't know if rescue's the right word, but he finds Elrond and Elros, right? After the last Sons of Fëanor do some mental shit again. However many Kingslayings it was.
Kingslaying, or whatever it is.
And I feel that relationship is still... That's also like a little bit weird, right? Why did they make Gil-galad so hostile towards Elrond? Well, maybe not hostile, but...
No, because he's genuinely like his father.
Yeah, effectively, yeah.
It's so weird.
So speaking of Elrond then, dwarves. I think that's...
I love that it's, speaking of Elrond, dwarves.
So that's going to be really interesting, I guess, because what will happen there, one assumes, is also interaction with Sauron, right? Because one of the seven rings will be given to...
Durin the Younger.
Yeah.
One assumes. But, like, they've missed a trick here, because if you want your Game of Thrones political drama analogue, the dwarves are where you should put it, not the Noldor. I think. And then you sort of pivot the dwarves into the Númenóreans when you get to Pharazôn's coup. Because they've written a political drama there. Disa's plotting a coup. To be fair, I don't really want much to change about the dwarves. I just want them to keep...
But you can sort of play on something that did actually happen in the canon, right? Where the dwarves killed... Thingol. Right?
Yes,
one of the greatest elven kings of all time.
Yeah.
So that's something you could kind of play into, like a dwarf conflict that spills into Middle Earth. Like a dwarf elven conflict or something along those lines.
Yeah, you could do.
That kind of sets up the bad blood that we see in The Lord of the Rings, for example.
Yeah, because we don't really get much of a sense from what we've seen so far that there's that much bad blood between the elves and the dwarves, and certainly nothing to explain the hostility between Legolas and Gimli at the Council of Elrond in Fellowship. Because
also Celebrimbor still has to make the door, doesn't he?
Celebrimbor still has to carve the doors of Durin.
Yeah. So there's definitely a lot of stuff there. What's stunning me is I think what the show is going to suffer from is distance. Because there's a lot of plots, but they're all very far apart, especially if Gandalf's going to go east.
They're just going to do the Game of Thrones thing and just slowly condense the world down to like 8 characters.
Yeah.
It's going to be really annoying.
But it's unclear at this point how they all actually intersect without some bullshit like the Mithril storyline.
Yeah.
Right, because Gandalf going east ultimately has no bearing on anybody else in that show at the moment.
Unless he does something to drive the East into... Well, no, because we've seen people from the East and they already love Sauron.
Exactly. Like, there's nothing...
So
there's no story there.
He's got to think he's heading east, but actually head west. That's the only answer.
He just ends up in the Shire. Just says, hey, you're an elf. And it's just Círdan.
Hold on a second. I don't.
And then the show becomes the training of Gandalf by Círdan the Shipwright.
It's just Gandalf lifting bits of boat.
I would watch that. I would watch a season of just Gandalf training montage.
Círdan. The role of Mr. Miyagi will be played by Círdan the Shipwright.
You're so right. It's going to happen, right? Gandalf is going to accidentally go west. He's going to have a training montage with Círdan, and then the Eagles are going to carry him all the way east.
Nice. Perfect. Love it.
But they're like, no, you need to go this way.
You idiot.
But genuinely, I think that's going to be...
It is going to be a problem. You're right.
Because I don't see how his storyline ties into anything else at the moment. It's unclear. I mean, it's unclear how Numenor is going to tie into anything else at the moment as well, right? Because after the explosion, they're surely just going to fuck off, aren't they?
Yeah, they're going to take Miriel back. Miriel's blind. Pharazôn... Oh, but in the next 4 seasons, Numenor has to come to Middle-earth in strength, take Sauron back to Numenor in chains. Sauron has to subvert the leadership of Numenor, convince them to worship Morgoth, convince them to sail against Valinor. Numenor needs to be drowned beneath the sea, and Elendil and his sons have to found Gondor and Arnor.
Yes.
That feels like quite a lot of things.
Yes. It is quite a lot of things.
I'm not quite sure. I was hoping for more of an idea from you of how to do it.
No, you've covered it very succinctly for once. I was just sort of thinking, like, the founding of Gondor. I mean, you just sort of wonder why, right? If their first foray back into Middle-earth was they went to the Southlands, got blown up by a volcano, why would you settle the lands right next to it?
To set a watch, I guess.
What, on a volcano?
Well, no, on Mordor, you dimwit.
Yeah, but they don't really know that Mordor is a thing.
True, that's true. We just had a title card where the name Southlands changed to Mordor.
Yeah, and ultimately all they knew about was a relatively small host of orcs led by some guy.
Dude with red hair.
Yeah. and then, we cut to... I guess it's not Rivendell, right? It's Lindon somewhere, right? Wasn't it?
It's Lindon.
And then it's revealed that Halbrand is Sauron, but I don't think if anyone's actually linked the two things.
No,
certainly not the Numenorians, because why would they?
They wouldn't. They'd have no reason to. That's dumb as fuck.
So it's like, I know where we'll settle, right next to this really active fucking thing that blew us up last time.
Yeah. It's all those great hats that Elendil wears. They make his head too hot. He can't think properly.
Well, maybe what they'll do in the show is they'll settle Arnor first, and then because it gets increasingly more and more bizarre out in the Southlands, they set a watch.
I think that's right. Well, Arnor is the chief of the...
It's the chief, but don't they settle... Realms. Don't they settle the south first? Because that's where they land, no?
They do land? I don't know.
And then they sort of carve a path through the...
through the Gap of Rohan and up the...
Yeah, the White Mountains? Is that what they're called?
No, it's the...
The ones by Gondor and Rohan.
Yes, those are the White Mountains.
And then, through the Gap and up north to Eregion.
To Annúminas.
I can't wait for a completely pointless introduction of Erebor and Dale.
Yeah, they're going to get added, aren't they?
Gandalf is 100% going to end up there.
That's true. That is where Gandalf's going, isn't it?
Which would be another dwarf king, actually. So another interesting play for the rings. That is something I genuinely actually want to see how they
Yeah.
handle, right? How does Sauron actually
Get the dwarves.
to take the rings?
People to take the
Yeah.
rings.
And also, how does he not know that the elves forged the rings when he was sort of there forging them?
That's going to be... it'll be the dagger. It won't be knowledge. It'll be the dagger. Sauron doesn't have access to Valinorian silver and gold. He only has access to silver and gold in Middle-earth. So the rings that they make without the Valinorian dagger will all be related, but the Valinorian dagger will be such that it puts them beyond the power of the One. That'll be the solution for that.
That's still something that confuses me so much, because they're beyond the power of the One, but their power is inexorably linked to the One, even though they precede the One.
Because in the canon, they succeed the One? No, they still precede the One.
No, they must be the first. They have to be the first, otherwise...
No, because they make...
Ultimately, the one is the last one anyway that is made.
The One is the last one, because Sauron puts it on, and then the bearers of the three take them off.
Which does imply that it's got power over the three, but then it doesn't.
But it doesn't. I think it does have some power, some measure of power over them, but they're not his in the way that the others are. So his hand wasn't involved in their forging, so they're not... The rings themselves are not corrupted by his influence, but
except that we actually see him forge the rings in the show.
The nature of their forging, the technique used in their forging enables him to bind them to the One, but they don't have the sort of draining, corruptive effect.
Yeah, I've never assumed it was a sort of binding. I always thought it was a sort of everyone's aware of each other, which is bad enough.
No, the One... The bearer of the One can force the others to his will, if his will is strong enough.
Yeah. It's sort of the same thing, I think.
Yeah. It's true. It's a
great scene, actually, in The Lord of the Rings, right? When, at the Mirror of Galadriel.
Yes.
When it turns out that Frodo is actually aware of the ring, and Sam's like, what ring?
Yeah, the starlight glinting through her fingers.
Yeah, it's like, if you tried, you could sort of see me and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah,
which would be quite funny to witness.
The mere fact of possession of the ring gives you special status.
Yeah. Well, and also it just turns out that Frodo is actually just using the ring without really...
Yeah,
he's exerting some level of command over it. Or it over him, depending on how you want to see it, I suppose.
Yeah.
But so many thoughts about Rings of Power Season 2, or arguably more about Season 1. Are you looking forward to Rings of Power Season 2?
I wasn't. Well, yes, I am, because I love Tolkien, and I will consume all of the Tolkien that I can get in whatever fashion I can get it.
That's a lie. And I will guarantee that you have not played the Gollum game or the Mines of Moria game.
No, that's all right. Fair enough. Most of the Tolkien I can get. I don't think the Gollum game is very Tolkien.
Well, because Rings of Power is.
It's more Tolkien. But I think Wheel of Time Season 2 convinced me that we should give these programs another chance, because Wheel of Time Season 2 is really good. I really enjoyed it in a way that I didn't think I was necessarily going to. And it almost retrospectively made Season 1 better. So I think Rings of Power is going to get another chance. For me. What about you?
Yeah, up until I saw an article recently about the casting choice, I think, for Sauron, I hadn't given it any thought. Which I think is quite telling, isn't it? Because I too crave Tolkien in any shape or form.
It is quite a damning indictment.
It's just,
like, it's there. We should be its target audience. We are its target audience.
And when I think back to Rings of Power, before we recorded this episode the first time around, the things that sort of came to my mind first were like, oh yeah, good casting choices a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Great shots, like really evocative of what Middle Earth would have looked like. Were it a real place, and were we in the Second Age and in the First Age, and it had a lot going for it. But then the more you sort of think, the more you remember the sheer amount of bullshit that they managed to write in for no good reason.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, it's really telling, I think, that neither of us have discussed the Harfoots at all.
Well, but they've sort of written themselves out anyway. So
they've written themselves out. We haven't mentioned Nori once, despite the fact that she's going with.
Yeah, but that has me concerned. Like, the scenes are just going to be still relatively incapable Gandalf, and then Nori, like, what are they going to be like? It's just going to be awful, isn't it?
And then, yeah, I know. And also, we haven't spoken about the Rube Goldberg machine to actually set off Mount Doom. with the dam and the sword that
just came out of nowhere. like, what the fuck?
But it's also clearly like an evil, corrupting sword. And we were all being like, does it mean that the kid's going to end up the Witch King? Or is the essence of Sauron bound into the sword and it's going to overtake? Nope.
I know, so much more elegant.
No.
The kid's still going to be the Witch King. Mark my words.
Kid's still 100% the Witch King.
100% going to be the Witch King still. But only because we said it.
We had this... Yeah, that's true. Like, we'll have rewritten their plans.
They would have listened to this episode and gone, whoa, that's fucking genius.
Yeah, I really liked the idea of using Theo as a barometer almost for the corruption of Middle-earth. And like, as Middle-earth is on the up, Theo is nicer. And then as Middle-earth becomes more corrupted, you can see Sauron's influence like working on him.
Yeah.
I like that as an idea, but...
Nope.
Like, nope.
Just took it away from us.
The sword, dam, tunnels, volcano thing, I think was the worst bit of the show. It was so stupid.
Second worst.
What was the worst?
Mithril somehow curing trees. I just can't get past that. Like, if that's the only way you can get the dwarves and the elves to interact with each other for your story, come on, that's such bullshit.
That was
Do
really
better.
Bad. I didn't need Mithril to be more special than it was.
Exactly. Like, it's just a really cool precious metal. Like, that's fine. We can all accept that.
Yeah.
Like, the waning of the elves can be, you can tie that into the dwarves in another way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just make it easier. Like, we're not going to be buying a Mithril from you anymore because we're not here.
Don't have the elves waning. Or make their waning tied to the rise of a darkness in the Southlands, which forces Gil-galad to send Galadriel to investigate why there's more darkness in the Southlands, because there's a power there that's strong enough that it's having a negative impact on the elves.
But you can't send Galadriel to investigate in the South. She's the commander of the armies of the North.
That's
what
true.
A slap in the face to the commander of the armies of the South. Who is probably Galadriel's husband.
Can you go and check on what Celeborn is up to down there?
We've not heard from him for like 4,000 years. So, I mean, potentially excited, but equally no idea when it's coming out. Like, it could be another year. So
they do have a long time to fuck it up.
But I mean,
and the writer's strike do concern me, just from a disruption to the process perspective. Like, that could have a big negative impact,
or it could have had a big positive impact, right? When they actually sort of looked at it and went, "Wow,
we need to try it again." I don't need a backstory. I don't need a backstory for Sauron. I don't need someone to try and make me feel sorry for Sauron. Just make him evil. And just leave it at that.
That'd be much truer to Tolkien.
Yeah, Sauron is not nuanced. There's no suggestion that he's, got any sort of rightness about him. He's just evil. Just leave it that way.
There's an episode there, I think, genuinely. Is that true?
Probably not.
Because, Tolkien is one of these examples, right, where there's definitely a supposedly defined evil. But given that Sauron is effectively a fallen angel, can he be saved? Food for thought. Maybe some sizzle there. I don't know.
I think there's some sizzle there.
We talk about Morgoth the same way.
I've just been in something like a day-long discussion about fallen angels on a different Discord server. So the thought of doing more talking about it fills me with absolute dread.
You talk about this sort of shit with other people other than me?
I'm afraid so. It's the only way I can get intelligent discussion about it.
That is, I feel wounded and hurt. And I'm disappointed in you.
Okay. I will have to live with your disappointment.
It also explains why your arguments get worse and worse. You're interacting with idiots, I'm sorry.
Zing.
I'm also not sorry.
Well played. All right,
as he drains his glass of whiskey. Yeah. Let us know, I suppose. What do you think? Are you looking forward to season 2 of Rings of Power? Could you not give less of a shit?
Here's a question. Here's a genuine question for the audience. What would Amazon have to do to get you to come back to Rings of Power? Is it nothing? Are you just going to watch it anyway? Or what would they have to change? What would they have to commit to you? Jeff Bezos has to come to your house and promise you what in order for you to watch Rings of Power Season 2?
That's actually a very good question, because I currently don't have Prime, so I would have to get Prime in order to watch Season 2.
Well, yeah, what's going to force you to get Prime?
Well, I was going to watch Wheel of Power? No, Wheel of Time.
Power.
That could be our show, Wheel of Power, the combination of the two. We'll take all the worst bits and somehow make it good. That'd be quite a fun writing challenge. No, I was going to do Wheel of Time, but who genuinely has the time?
It's fair. It's a fair challenge.
I've got to talk to idiots once a week on a Monday, so...
Hey. Is that when your tutes are?
No, actually, I don't think I've ever had one on Monday.
Way to absolutely shit on your students, but never mind.
Well, no further comment. They're all right. They're pretty good. Sometimes they're okay, half decent.
You don't hate them all.
I don't hate them all. No. I think we should wrap it up there.
Huh? Yeah, you're digging.
We're doing that stalling thing where we just can't end. Because I'm ending. That's why. Okay, I see.
Yeah, yes. I've been waiting for you to end for about 10 minutes.
Oh well, I feel like I'd filibuster a little bit more. No, maybe not. You're just gonna hang up the call. Okay. Well, thank you all so very much for listening to this episode of Expertise is Overrated. No doubt we've said some things that were either objectively wrong or downright offensive. As ever, feel free to let us know, rate the podcast and leave us a comment, or drop us an email at expertiseisoverrated@gmail.com, tweet us at zeroexpertise, check out our website expertiseisoverrated.podbean.com, or come join us on our Discord server.
If you're lucky, we might just argue with you in one of our upcoming episodes. If you're really lucky, we might call you an idiot. Come back next time for some more absolute nonsense.